So welcome everybody. Thank you for joining in person, those who are here and also those who are online. As always, on Thursdays, we have the Gita satsang and we use the book, The Essence of the Bhagawad Gita, explained by Paramans Yogananda and as remembered by Swami Kriyananda. So today we will take a couple of verses from chapter 5. This is freedom through inner renunciation. And the verses are 15 and 16. So 15 says, sorry, let me do verses 14 and 15. So verse 14 says, it is not God, the sovereign self, who creates in mankind the consciousness of acting in this world. God neither causes people to act, nor entangles them in the karmic consequences of their actions. It is Maya, the cosmic illusion, which acts through them. I will reread it. It is not God, the sovereign self, who creates in mankind the consciousness of acting in this world. God neither causes people to act, nor entangles them in the karmic consequences of their actions. It is Maya, the cosmic illusion, which acts through them. Then 15 says, the all-pervading is not concerned about people's sins or virtues. Wisdom, though it is a natural state of every man, is eclipsed by cosmic delusion. Mankind thus becomes bewildered as to the difference between right and wrong. I will read it again. The all-pervading is not concerned about people's sins or virtues. Wisdom, though it is a natural state of every man, is eclipsed by cosmic delusion. Mankind thus becomes bewildered as to the difference between right and wrong. How consoling, isn't it? And what clarity. Now, there are many supposed contradictions that we may find. Here, the Gita is saying God neither causes people to act nor entangles them in the karmic consequences of their actions. And on some levels, we are told that God is the doer, God is acting through us, and He is causing us to act. And of course, we have enough clarity to understand that the karmic consequences are the result of actions that have gone wrong. But however, how then do we reconcile this this verse that Krishna is telling Arjuna here, that God neither causes people to act nor entangles them, with the truth that God is a doer through us? Now here, of course, Krishna is referring to God has two aspects to his nature. One that is beyond creation, which is vibrationless, and one that is in creation, which is constantly vibrating, which is in delusion, which we call Maya. And this vibratory force is a force that is propelled outward away from God. And that this is what we call Maya, delusion. And so this propelled outward force creates the illusion of appearances, creates the illusion of reality. And at the same time, even as this force goes outward to create this universe, there is an inward pulling opposite attractive force, which is also drawing those very things that are being cast out, which is being drawn to God. And this opposing attractive and repulsive forces keeps the universe in balance. Except that a very special creation of God is also invested with a very special gift, and that is man's free will. He gave man free will, and there begins the problem. You see, Master said the first thought is not your responsibility, but the second thought is your responsibility. How you choose to respond through your second thought is indicative of whether how you used your free will, whether you used your free will to choose the inner temptations of the soul or to choose the outer temptations of delusion. Both are equally powerful. And in the present state of our consciousness, the second is even more powerful than the first, simply because we are not aware of the enticement of the first, because we have not experienced it enough. If you would experience it enough, Yogananda ji would say, if you would sit in meditation, he said in the beginning it is difficult, but he said you will reach a time if you persist, where you'll find it difficult to get away from meditation. So because we don't taste the fruits of the soul enough, and we live more in the consciousness of the senses, of course, the evidence and the fruits of our sensory pleasures are greater and more powerful upon us. And so always, most often in this battle, we find that the soul is losing the battle. So this line that Krishna is telling Arjuna here, that God does not create the consciousness of acting, what he means is that aspect of God which is beyond creation, that stillness, that still vibration beyond creation, because man is made in the image of God, that still nature is also within each one of us. And even as God is not affected by the delusive nature of his creation, likewise, we too have been given the powers through the use of free will to remain unaffected by this cosmic delusion. That is one thing that the verse is saying here, that it neither causes people to act, it's the Maik's way. And that is why Yogananda ji would say, I do not ask you to overcome delusion, but I ask you to resist it. Because God knows the Maik's way, that's why that first thought is not your responsibility. They say thoughts run even through the minds of saints. The difference between them and us is they don't engage with those thoughts, we engage. They don't play with it, they don't play with delusion, we play. So cosmic Maya flows through us. The moment we enter into this body, identified with body consciousness, identified with our senses, we begin to perceive this world and feel this is the reality. And this is not the causative force of one incarnation. It's the causative force of many incarnations. This is the propelled force of Maya, which God himself has created. And without the power of God, we are not free from it. And that is why Yogananda ji says, resist it. Because overcoming also is not in our hands, because the very mind with which we are perceiving it is not free from that delusion. So much as we exercise our mind and our power and our self-effort, we will make progress, but we will never be free from it, except when God rewards that self-effort through the power of his grace. And therefore, it is very important, as Christ would say in that prayer, lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. We need the power of prayer. We need the power of meditation. We need the power of the Guru to help us rise above this delusion. So don't be disheartened. It's okay, we'll fall, we'll fail. But as Yogananda ji would say, it's just when we fall that is the right time to sow the seeds of success and try again, and to persist, and to persist. You know, and it's not easy, this veil of delusion. If you study the lives of the masters, they are not free from it too. Mahavatar Babaji, else Larry Mahashaya, when they meet for the first time, a divine purpose underlay the fact that you did not meet me in this life until you were married with modest responsibilities. Now, we are talking about an avatar who had no karmic obligations to be here, who had no karmic obligations to be married, to raise a family, to be an accountant. He had no unfinished business in this world, but that veil of delusion hid Babaji, his guru, so much so that even after he met his guru, he did not recognize him. Babaji gave him the touch, and then his memory awakens. So this power of delusion is very, very potent. However, there is also God's will that is playing through it. And a man who is free of egoism, it's very interesting. I was just pondering about that when reading about this verse. He is a very strange spectacle for the world. Trailanga Swami, before I go on to that story, there's another thing that Babaji told Lahiri Mahashaya. When Lahiri Mahashaya, after he received initiation into Kriya, wanted to stay back with Babaji and his group of disciples in the mountains. And Babaji tells him, no, you need to be in the world. He said, even though you have sundered every karmic tie, you need to be in the world and show people how to live the life of a householder in the busy marts of the cities. So why I say this is, sometimes even in our egoic pursuit of a certain freedom or perfection, we take it on ourselves. I want to be free of this ego. And we want to accept with all humility. We must make the effort. We must make the necessary advances in our labor. But the power belongs to the Guru. And I remember reading, Swamiji writes very clearly in one of his essays in Religion and the New Age. And no matter how much you read, sometimes a certain insight hits you more clearly with more understanding when you read it at a certain time, when your consciousness is ready to see. And he says very clearly there that don't judge people, as Krishna is saying it, don't judge people for their sins. Because sometimes, no matter how much people make the effort, until in the God-given time of their release and freedom, they will not be given freedom. So we need to have compassion that all our self-effort, all our labor is finally crowned, not by our effort, but by God's grace. So we need to bring more compassion. We'll come to the thing of sins and virtues later, but I wanted to come back to the story. I was saying that even saints who are free of egoism, they are a strange spectacle for the world. People don't understand them. They are warriors, fearless, stand unshaken before God, but yet they lay themselves open to the scoffings of man's littleness. And, in the autobiography, Trailanga Swami, he was at a public discourse, and he takes that opportunity to publicly honor Lahiri Mahashaya. And one of his disciples, a Puritan, contests Trailanga Swami. He said, why do you, a Swami and a renunciate, honor Lahiri Mahashaya, a householder, thus? And Trailanga Swami quietly responds. He says, Lahiri Mahashaya is like a divine kitten, remaining wherever Divine Mother has placed him, fulfilling his worldly duties as a householder. He has received perfect self-realization, for which I have renounced even my loincloth. So the ways of the divine are mysterious. So we want to be careful, we want to be warned. These eyes, these senses with which we try to perceive or with which we try to understand are deluded. And that is why the scriptures say, do not judge lest you be judged. Or rather, the measure you give is the measure you will get. So I want to come back to this next line. The all-pervading is not concerned about people's sins or virtues. Wisdom is eclipsed by cosmic delusion, and mankind thus becomes bewildered as to the difference between right and wrong. Sin, how much entertainment we have by playing on other people's sins. And it's interesting. And the Gita here is counseling us again and again. Sin is what? It's error. It's self-absorption. It's egoism. And it's inevitable that when we use the instrumentality of the ego in this plane, it is caught in the delusion of the I. So the Gita is counseling us here, don't worry about it. What we need to do is practice the techniques, discipline the body, practice those techniques that connect you, that help you get in touch with the joy of the soul. So you are aware of that higher reality. And when you become aware of those higher realities, then the lower realities will cease to entice you. That is the only way out of delusion. Intellectual reason will not help us come out of it. And that is why the importance of meditation, of these practices of yoga, practices that draw us closer towards union with our higher self. It begins to help us let go of that principle of I. As we come into contact more and more in deep meditation with spirit, we begin to lose the binding power of the I. And in that loosening of the ego, energies, vrittis that are blocked by that anchoring power of the ego, it begins to loosen up, it begins to free, it begins to be dissolved, and we experience more and more freedom in the divine. Wisdom is eclipsed. He says here, wisdom is a natural state of man, beyond vibration. But in vibration, it is bewildered. It is bewildered by the dualities. It is bewildered by seemingly inconsistent expressions of the spirit. It is bewildered by the ups and downs, by the waves on that one ocean. It doesn't know how to make sense of it because the senses are limited. The senses are limited. Swamiji talks about, there is a story I wanted to share where Swamiji writes about Master being William the Conqueror. And Swamiji thought for the longest time, he grew up in the British education system. He thought, I thought he was the villain for the longest time in history. Until he read, or he was told by Master that Master himself was William the Conqueror. And he said, I found it very difficult to accept that a person whom I thought was a villain all the time is my guru in this life. He said, I immediately went to the library, started reading up about William the Conqueror, and he asked Master one day, is it easy to be in samadhi when you are when you are engaged in outer activity? And Master said, one never loses awareness of that inner freedom. So outwardly, this is why I said the saint is a strange spectacle. William the Conqueror, he was so powerful. He had, in like manner, he also attracted very powerful enemies because people could not stand his power. Likewise, Swamiji said, even in this life, Master had a number of enemies, because especially men, because they just couldn't relate to that powerful energy that he brought. It would either excite jealousy or, they just didn't know how to relate to the energy. But Master said that once you have reached that point in your or the stage in your consciousness where you are no longer a slave to the ego or subject to the compulsions of the ego, he said, once you're no longer subject to it, he said, you are free. And that state of awareness, that inner freedom, you are always aware of it. And you can walk and talk in this world with complete awareness of that freedom. He said, and that is where we want to be, in that inner temple. He would say, coming down now and then to eat or talk or interact as necessary. But that is what it means, that be in that inner self, that still self in you, beyond vibration. And that's a powerful practice of Hong Sau. That's the distilled principle of Hong Sau. You're just watching the breath. The breath is playing in and out through your body, but you are the observer. That's what is happening through this body, mind, and spirit, that the soul is the observer. And this body, this mind, is being used as a playground, as a battlefield. But we don't want to get enmeshed in that tangle. We want to be able to observe and play as necessary according to the divine will, not according to our will. This again is very important. Sometimes on the spiritual path, we can have a lot of notions that this is my way to God or this is the way to be. Swamiji, some of the stories in the new path are so illustrative. I used to have this question, how do you know, how do you make the right decisions? When you read that story, where Swamiji is talking about, all those conversations he had with Paramahansa Yogananda, it gives you so many perspectives how to approach work, how to approach your meditations. On the one hand, he is telling somebody, you have not meditated enough. You must meditate every day. Meditation is the highest activity. And to Swami Kriyananda, at one point, he gave Swamiji some errand. And Swamiji, of course, because Master would say that you must meditate, he would spend long hours in meditation. And so next day when Master met him, he asked Swamiji, did you finish the task I gave you? And Swamiji said, oh, Master, I was meditating. And then Master tells him, in that case, meditate less. And so to the novice, it is riddle. I mean, now he's saying meditate more, then he's saying meditate. He's saying don't meditate less. How do we know? It's just one simple question. What is the Guru's will? It's something I remember again and again, Adityaji keeps telling us, did you ask Master? Did you ask Master? And that's the only question we need to answer on the path. It's not about how long you have meditated. It's not about how many hours of seva you have done. It's not about how many times you have praised your master, and stood up for him and as a show of, this is my guru, or try to convert somebody in the name of the guru. No, it's one simple question. Are you doing what the guru wants you to do? That is the one overarching principle that leads us towards freedom, because your salvation is in your guru's hands. This is a God-given guru-disciple relationship. It is your guru who is tasked with your self-realization. If you're in opposition to your guru because you have your own understanding, your own convictions, your own thoughts, the guru will wait till you ask him. And so coming back to this point, the all-pervading is not concerned about people's sins or virtues. Master would say, don't call yourself a sinner. The greatest sin, he would say, is to call yourself a sinner. He said, just, get up, dust yourself, try again, try again. God is most loving. On one hand, you can say this force of Maya that takes people away from God, in a sense, is a sin. Isn't it? If you get caught in it, you're in error. But how does God counteract that outward going force? Through love, through that opposite attractive force of love. And so ultimately, the overriding law of karma is also love. Now, we might think, oh, God is saying, don't be worried about your sins. And remember, he's also saying he's not concerned about your virtues. We make a big deal of virtues. It is important. Why? There's a beautiful line that Rumi says. He said, beyond the fields of right and wrong is another field. I will meet you there. But to reach that field beyond right and wrong, beyond three gunas, rahitam, you have to cross the fields of right and wrong. So while we are in this consciousness, while we are enmeshed in this karmic entangle, yes, we want to practice discrimination of what is right and wrong. And if we don't keep an account of it, the law of karma does. And it does flower from time to time, which bewilders us. Why is this happening to me? What can I do about it? So the law of karma works. So it's not to say that we can get casual about our thoughts and actions, because God is saying, God is not concerned about our sins and virtues. No, we need to be responsible. As Master said, the second thought is your responsibility. Are you moving in or are you moving out? And this balance that God is talking about, friends, I'll close with this, is very important. That as we go out, just as that outward flowing force of Maya is constantly balanced by that inward force of love, likewise, in every outward activity, we need to draw the reins of our impulses inward into the spine. If you're enjoying a good conversation with a friend, also be aware that this love is coming through this person. If you're enjoying some good food, remember this power of taste is God's power flowing through you and giving you the power to enjoy it. So as you go out, so it's not about not going out. It's important to keep your anchor in the divine awareness of where is this power coming from. That's what balances or neutralizes the flow of the power of Maya that flows through our consciousness. And so a few practices, as Christ says, deliver us from evil, deliver us from the evil of Maya. Prayer is a very powerful way of calling on God's power to be by your side. And then Master would say, discipline your body through right practices. Then it will become more aware of the joy of the soul. Right eating, right attitudes, right practices. And meditation, interiorizing your awareness after a full day of activity. Important to balance that outwardness with bringing the focus inward. And then, of course, remember the Guru. Call on the Guru all the time. He is our engine towards salvation. He will carry us to God. He will free us from whatever is afflicting us. It's not easy. For the longest time, and I think by now everybody knows, for the longest time I've been practicing overcoming complaints, but the practice is also fun. So in 2008, so Ritu is already laughing. In 2008, I got tired of complaining and I told Master, I have to get out of this. So I opened the book Imitation of Christ and I told Christ, tell me, give me an answer. And I opened I closed my eyes, just opened to a random page. And the first two words that my eyes was set on, stop complaining. From then, I have been trying to practice complaining. And the fun thing is, every time I get up in the morning and tell Master, okay, today I will try my best not to complain. Maya is so creative. You don't even know how it stumbles you. And then I'm like, oh my God, Master. Okay, I will try again. So I have been doing this again and again. It takes a warrior. I remember I'll close with the story. Swamiji was giving a talk in Symbiosis. This was towards the last year of his life. Of course, his health was always riddled with some challenge or the other. And this particular time, in fact, they almost told us on the morning of the thing, Swamiji is suddenly not well, and please pray for him. We don't know if he will be able to do the talk. So we were all praying for him. And but then towards the afternoon, we get a message from Nirmala and Dharmadas ji, who were the spiritual directors. They said, okay, Swamiji is coming for the talk. And we were all setting up the place. And then after setting up, we were all lined up there. We were told that Swamiji's car is coming, and Swamiji comes out and Narayani is holding him. And he was so frail and feeble. I remember he walked with difficulty. Seeing him, I was like, my heart was, how is he going to do this talk of 1 hour? He would move one step forward, then he would pause. He would move the next step forward, he would pause. And that is how he walked till the green room. Then he sat there. And then anyways, finally it was time for the talk, and I was sitting there. Every line that came out was after a deep. Then he would say. Then there would be a long pause, the next line. By this time, after a few lines, I was sitting on the edge of my chair. I was like, who knows, very soon Swamiji is going to tell Nirmala and Dharmadas ji that, maybe you guys should carry on, I don't think. But of course, that was foolish of me. I didn't know Swamiji enough. But Swamiji carried on that way for 1 hour. And then he answered question and answers after that. I still remember very clearly, I was literally choked with tears because Master was showing, this is a true hero. Delusion is having its sway over his body. He did not give in. Master took over his frame and spoke through him. Swami was not capable of doing that. And that is the warrior we want to be. It doesn't come easily, but we have to try again and again, every day. That's the only way. Try till you succeed, and Master is right there by your side.